Have to.
Okay. Hello and welcome. Thank you all for being here today. I'm Nick Kanoki, Director of Technology for the Asset Leadership Network, and I'm excited for this second program as part of our 2024 Federal Asset Leadership Insights. And we just want to mention yesterday's program was a smashing success featuring the Enterprise Asset Manager for the Architect of the Capitol, and also a panel from the U.S. Government Accountability Office. So the recording and podcasts and highlights from that program will be coming out shortly, but they're not available yet, so stay tuned. And then we just want to thank our patron members before we get into today's program. Jacobs, Mantech, Onuma, ABS Quality Evaluations, and CGI, as well as all our organizational members for making programs like this possible. And if you're out there wondering how we could work together, please reach out. The ALN would love to partner with every organization in the world because we believe asset management and asset leadership are applicable to everyone and can bring value. And with that, today's Federal Asset Leadership Insights panel discussion features Peter Dodgion, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Civil Works Asset Manager, Robin Blair, Agency Asset Manager for Bonneville Power, and also Stacy Webster-Wharton, Operations and Performance Administrator at Bonneville, as well as David Shelby, and I can't quite see part of his title, Agency Property Management Officer for the U.S. EPA. So welcome all panelists, and we're super grateful that you guys could make time to be here with us today. And we will get into discussion shortly, but we also just want to highlight the final program of this series of Federal Asset Leadership Insights is next Thursday at this same time. And that will feature Roger Grant, who's Vice President of the National Institute of Building and Sciences Building Technology Branch. And so we are very excited to have him and I believe Kimono Numa, one of our patron organizational member sponsors, also on that program. And Mike, do you want to say anything more about this program before we get underway?
Yes, I think it's critical that digital twins will be a next surge forward for asset management. The ability to see what we're talking about related to the complexity of asset management of buildings and things and equipment and roads and bridges, and these are all possible to be created in digital twins, fleets. And when we can see how all of these different assets work together, we can really break down some of the silos that is a natural reaction or a natural outcome of true asset management led by top leaders. And so that brings us to today's group of top leaders who have been doing asset management and we've talked with in the past. And so welcome, David and Stacy, and I'm sure we'll be joined by others, but thank you for joining us. And since David has not turned off his microphone, why don't we start with David? Welcome, David. It's good having you back on the program.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks for having me. For anybody that is hearing or visually impaired, I am a light-skinned black male wearing a navy blue jacket with a white shirt and a red and blue tie with a low dark haircut with a dark burgundy reddish background behind me.
And a smoking painting of a lovely woman. And if you are visually impaired, David's looking great. We've never had that breakdown before, David. Thank you. That's a level of inclusiveness and equity that we haven't exercised before, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Mike.
So, Stacy, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'll do that too, and I'll take a cue from David. It's something that we do in the DOE also. I'm Stacy Webster-Wharton with the Bonneville Power Administration, and glad to be here, glad to be back. It's been a little while. For the visually impaired, I am it's hard to figure out. I'm wearing glasses. I am a white female with brownish blonde hair, less blonde than it used to be. Shoulder length, wearing a white shirt with a collar, and I have a blurred background because my background is not as cool as David's by any means, especially that
But you're
color.
looking
Loving
equally
that
good.
maroon. Thank you.
And Robin, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Oh, perfectly.
Okay, perfect. Robin Blair, I'm the agency asset manager for Bonneville Power Administration. And to follow suit, I guess I'm a white female, long, light brown hair, wearing glasses and a white shirt. And my background is just my bedroom. So there's a bed and some windows, and it's not very exciting.
Very homey, though. Thank you all for joining us. And I would like to start actually with Bonneville Power, if that's okay, David, because we have the benefit of having two of you represent. I'll let you flip a coin and say who wants to speak first. I don't know if you've planned out what you're going to say, but I'll let you determine who's going to go first.
Robin, did you want to go first?
I was going to say,
As
Stacy,
the
why don't you go
agency asset. All right, I'll go first. Then. Sure, why not? And is Peter not here with us today?
Not
Corps
yet.
of Engineers?
He's traveling, and so he said he was going to be able to join us despite the fact that he was traveling, but maybe something came up.
Yeah, we work with him a lot with the Bonneville Power Administration, and we actually had a face-to-face with him about our federal asset management and our groups just, what was it, a week and a half ago. So.
What were you talking with? Let me just go ahead and probe that.
You want to go? Yeah, it's good. We have a federal asset management group that gets together. Most of the participants are actually, there was a time frame that the Department of the State was involved for a very short little bit, and I've been involved in it in the last about 2 years plus or minus. And it is a group of the Bureau of Reclamation, the Corps of Engineers, WAPA, which is the Western Area Power Administration, the TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority, and then Bonneville Power Administration. All of us have in common the hydropower aspect. But we don't just focus only on that, because Corps of Engineers and Bureau have way more expansive asset management into recreation and flood control, different things like that, irrigation, more so than we do. But we get together regularly, every 3 to 4 months, to talk about what we're doing, and so we can learn from each other, expand our knowledge, and maybe help that with what we take back to our areas to expand our maturation and understanding in asset management. Our last meeting was on condition. We all usually do a theme. Every session we have a theme of what the subject will be about, and we do a presentation on what our agencies are doing with that theme. We leave it kind of open. I mean, we have a theme, but we all take it from as whatever angle is appropriate for our organization or what we want to get out there. So our last meeting was about conditions and how asset condition, health. How do we measure it? What are some of our challenges with it? And it was a really good conversation. Plus, we also got to get to know TVA a little bit more, because our meeting was in Chattanooga.
Excellent. And I understand that those meetings have guests, and that the Asset Leadership Network has introduced David Platts from the United Nations to your group. And from what I understand, he gave a web presentation when the meeting was out in Utah earlier this year. And then I also understand that you allow other people to join. I had been talking with Byron Dunlop a little bit before he presented yesterday, and said that he had been in communication with some of the people who's part of that group. So I know it's an ad hoc group, and that you're focused on the hydroelectricity in general, but obviously you're open to allowing others in. So that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, other federal agencies, we've had the Department of State, I think they called in on one call one time. But we are interested in, if anybody's interested, they can reach out to me or Peter Dodgion.
Excellent. All right, so Stacy, can you talk a little bit about the relationship between you and Robin and what you've been doing recently?
So I am the Operations Performance Administrator, which is my title, and I'm sure that it provides so much clarity. What I do is I am the executive that oversees asset management, data management. I'm actually the Chief Data Officer myself too, and I have data analytics underneath me. And along with that, I have business processes. So we have three main programs, and they all intertwine. Without, we're just so happy with 513, 500113, that just ISO that just came out with data assets, because we can now kind of bring those two together even more in our maturation, bring those groups, our agency groups, because we're actually, even though Robin is the agency, I'll let her introduce herself. I'm just going to steal a little bit of her thunder by saying she's an agency asset manager. We have people that work out in the various business lines that do the day-to-day in their area of asset management, and they're their business line POCs for asset management and experts. So we're now able to start bringing them in a little bit more into the data arena, and with that, processes, because good processes make good data makes good they go hand in hand. We've got to be able to, 55013, thank you. They're very important together, and they go hand in hand. So that's a little bit about what I do. It's a new organization that we have at BPA, because we're emphasizing not only asset management. Asset management's been around and in this program since 2018. My organization has just been, we had a 1-year anniversary recently because we folded in business processes and data.
Excellent. We'll get back to data more, but we'll let Robin see if she brings us to that.
Yeah, like Stacy said, so I am the agency at the enterprise level, the agency asset manager. And then a lot of what I do is help to guide and direct the business line asset managers. And so the way Bonneville has it structured, we have 7 business lines that all are asset categories, and they each have their own asset managers and develop their own SAMPs and asset plans and everything. So it's really trying to corral those 7 all together and have something standard across the whole agency, so they're all a little bit similar. So that's mostly what I do.
So what have you been doing in the past year in that regard?
Our couple initiatives we've been working on were to get everybody to document their health criticality and risk for all their assets. So that's one thing. We've been doing that for a long time, but to really have it well documented across everybody and across everybody's assets has been important. And one of the things, and we're and getting that into a SEIS, so getting that into a system so that it can be cataloged. And we're 90% complete on that. So that was really good. And then another thing that we've been working on for a couple of years, and we're going to continue on, is our leadership alignment. And that kind of goes with what Stacy was talking about the data governance and the business processes. And it's really about getting alignment up and down the business lines and then across the business lines, and having everybody on the same page and really embracing the concept of asset management.
That's something that David had talked about the last time he was with us. So we'll come back to that, David, when we're talking with you. But while I have Bonneville here, I want to ask about the data management. What can you tell us about how ISO 55013 has given you a tool to allow you to do things that you hadn't been able to do before?
I think we're just diving into it, but it's great to have that document and standard to point um, to say this is really something we need to do, and to help our data governance team have something to back up what they're asking folks to do. But that's data's really Stacy's side of the house. I'm going to let her talk about that one.
Okay.
Oh, you did great. You did great. Yeah, it's basically opened the door. It's about the timing of it. It's a perfect timing as we fold and expand and mature in our data governance arena. And the timing was just practically perfect when it came on out. We're going to start folding our asset category representatives into our data governance and our teams and the work that we're doing and our data strategy that we're doing, so that they can be actively involved. Because as it's noted in the chat, data is essential to successful asset management, right? We've got to know our data. We've got to be able to find it readily available and be able to get to it and have it be the appropriate data for the appropriate need so that it's ready to go. And there's a lot of work that goes into that. We can collect a lot of data, but is it fit for purpose? Is it ready to go? Is it easily accessible? And is it the right number of systems? So let's fold that conversation about data into the number of systems and applications that we have. Do we have the right number? It allows us, diving into this and opening the door, it just opens the door for them to come to the table, to give us a better reason for them to come to the table. We had a reason anyway. It's now an ISO. So yeah, there we go. And they're going to start in January. Well, we got to break the news if any of them are on the line. we got to break the news more to them about the need to attend. So.
Okay, well, that's excellent in that it is showing how this international effort is working on a national level here. And we've got people online who are part of the U.S. Technical Advisory Group that has helped contribute to creating ISO 55013, and they're going to be very happy to know that it's very quickly having an impact. So to go a little further into the information management, and part of the theme of this series is that federal agencies have been looking at asset management and the ISO documents for a while now. There is a maturity, and you said it was good timing. I'm sure you had information all along, and you had information management all along. What was it that you wanted to improve, and why was it good timing that this document came out this year to help you with that improvement?
Well, I think it's good timing in the fact of where we are in our maturation overall in areas of asset management and data governance. Data governance and management is something that's essential for all businesses, agencies, federal or non, and is an evolutionary and maturing process that now has, with the influx of AI and the expansion of machine learning, it's becoming even more and more important that we have strong data governance and that we really look at our data quality to make sure that we have the appropriate, validated our data and know that it's appropriate for use in that area. It becomes even more important as we start venturing down at some point down that AI arena. For us specifically, with our organization being new in a year, and our data group, which we've expanded, getting going, and after a year, it's good timing from that standpoint. Gotcha. Asset management in Robin's group has been around since 2018, and we were always doing asset management before that too. Gotcha. But it's just another opportunity for us to look at our maturity in the asset management arena from an angle of not only, and I want to throw out the processes that Robin mentioned, but in data, but also in processes, because you've got to know your business and the processes that you have in your business in order to understand what data you're getting out of it and your software needs, and it all goes together, and it all is essential to, and goes around the sun, if you will, of because we always joke that we're the center of we are the center of the universe. That's our joke, because it's so we're operations. Our group is the performance operations group, and it is all of those areas are essential.
Excellent. So that really ties into digital twins of next week, because, and this is going to be a question for all of you. The technologies and tools, those people always think that that's what's most important. But asset management governance, when I learned about asset management governance, I jumped from BIM and digital twins to asset management, because that's the directive that tells the technology what they need to do. And so it's great to have the technology, but you need the asset management governance in order to guide them. And Robin, I see you smiling and reacting to that. Would you like to comment?
Well, we were just talking, Stacy and I were just talking yesterday about having what sometimes happens is we have a tool or software, and then there's an effort to change our processes and what we're doing to fit that tool or software. And so one of the opportunities with ISO 5513 and just sort of this whole movement in data is that we have the opportunity to look at the systems and say, what do we need? What are our requirements, and what system fits that, and kind of reverse that thing that we've been doing for so long, and to consolidate those systems, really, so we can get the best out of them. So I think that's the opportunity, that, and the part that the enterprise programs like the asset management and what Stacy's other two groups do is to be able to provide that governance, and that, like, hold on, folks, we're not going to just make this work for whatever we've got. Let's figure out what we really need and see what can fit that.
Excellent. Thank you. And then before I forget, I want to ask, Jack Kelly has a question about how do the different agencies who belong to the ad hoc asset management group judge the maturities of your different asset management systems?
We're a judge-free organization, if you will. We're about just sharing where we're at the time, and meeting everyone where they're at, and then brainstorming ideas and bouncing things off of each other to see where we can go to. So, yeah.
Excellent.
Recently we did talk about agency assessments. And not, we weren't judging each other's assessments or anything like that, but opportunities of who's done the assessments, the avenues that we do it, how often you do the assessments, not just the condition assessments, but just the maturity part of it too, of the programs.
Okay. And then before we leave Bonneville, you mentioned that next year you're doing the information management surge. Are there any other initiatives you have for 2025? Robin, we can start with you.
We have an initiative to enhance our decision optimization, and that really goes kind of hand in hand with the data and the systems that we were just talking about. But we want to incorporate governance, process, and establish that kind of decision criteria across all the business lines. So that's initiative, it's going to take years to figure out and to complete for everybody to be able to do it, but it's something that we're kicking off this year. So we're starting that journey.
One of the things that Byron Dunlap mentioned yesterday is that this is in stages, and that I mentioned that Russell Weniger from the Air Force once mentioned, we're about 15 years into a 25, 30-year program here. And that was really impressive to hear because of the honesty, and it helped me really understand the complexity of bringing asset management to large organizations. And it's very good to be able to be in an organization that provides a platform to allow federal agencies to discuss the challenges and the successes. So if you want to talk about anything that has been a benefit, that you're really happy with outcomes of anything that you've done, you can save that. We'll have a discussion with open discussion with David, but I just wanted to key you up for that. So,
Perfect.
all right, thank you. So, David, I saw you really getting excited about the concept of having asset management flow through all the different departments. Was there something you wanted to contribute on that?
That's exactly what we're going through now. And before I speak, let me make sure that I clarify that I'm speaking on behalf of myself, David Shelby, not on behalf of EPA, GSA, nor the federal government. So I'm speaking from my personal experience. But currently, right now, my personal experience, what we're going through is a process to make sure that system integration is happening across the board. Everyone needs the data. What I was smiling about, the question that you had just recently asked, what has ISO 55013 done? One answer to that and one statement, I think everybody has been doing ISO 55013 before the standard was even written. Because when you look across organizations, you start to see where there's shortfalls at and things that need to be improved. So the standard brought it all together by identifying it in an actual document and saying, hey, this is the common practice of what everybody sees. So this is how we need to do business. So where we're at in our current experience is timing. So what I've experienced in the past is if, say, your finance system is not completely synced to your asset management system or your acquisition system, if you have a separate disposition system or depending on what type of software you're using, any program can get held up in that timeliness bubble. And so what the standard does and what the practice does is it gets data in real time to all business groups that need it at the same time. So one system is not fully contingent upon another system from a time perspective to receive an asset. The longest process that we have is the correction of an acquisition document, not the document itself, but the acquisition process. So when an asset is acquired, the document that's used to procure the asset versus the amount of time that the asset is put into a federal system versus the time that the accounting office or the CFO office can actually see it in real time, so that the acquisitions office, the property office, and the CFO is all sharing the same data at one time. So basically, it's just a check and balance of a checkbook, the same way you would at the end of the year. So I think now we have sped that time up tremendously from sometimes potentially a week down to usually 24 hours that we can see something, which forces the conversation where I can say, hey, Stacy, hey, Robin, did this happen? Did that happen? Or where you're at, something that they need to do that's physical that I physically can't see inside of a software system. So that's where we're at now. So the biggest thing that we have going on because of that and because of data governance is I'm working on 2 system integration projects. One specifically for the world of IT that can live as an asset world all by itself. I'm sure everybody has experienced excessive servers, routers, switches, computers, and things of that nature. And then on the other side, making sure that the system that runs our finance system is fully integrated with property acquisition and finance together.
That's spectacular. And that's one of the best immediate benefits from the standard that I've ever heard. So congratulations. Timing was good for you also.
Great. You know, the pandemic slowed things down. So we had to adjust priorities. We had to adjust how you did business. we had I think the government had a surge of people that left the federal government, working differently. The whole remote process. Some are 2 or 3 days a week. Some are full-time telework. So you need to figure out how to do business on the fly and how to change with the time and not be afraid of it, but embrace it and get extremely aggressive with it so that the business is not managing you, you're managing the business operation itself.
That's actually spectacular. And anytime you want to give a more detailed presentation on what you've achieved there, we are really open to that, because one of the things that the Asset Leadership Network is trying to do is to rapidly deploy best practices.
Yes.
And it seems like you've got your handle on that information aspect really well.
From when we spoke before, this is the fruition of that prior conversation. So for those that didn't attend or didn't see the first presentation, what we had discussed was I had seen a structure where certain offices weren't integrated and the property offices weren't properly integrated. So I had to physically go out and reach all of our facility managers, fleet managers, IT managers. We're in the business of science, so lab directors, emergency response folks, and I had to bring them all together and say, hey, you guys have a federal responsibility in asset management. You might be a manager or supervisor, maybe not have been aware, because some agencies think that asset management is about counting paper clips and ink pens until you get an IG report. And then they spotlight all these different internal controls that can be approved upon. And so whether you have an internal IG or an external auditor coming in to audit your asset management program, if you can use the standard to start structuring your program and get extremely aggressive and going to make these business connections, partnership, and building your own internal asset management team, that's what it's going to take. So,
well, that's excellent, and it actually sets up a perfect transition to Peter Dodgion, who just joined us. When I first met with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Civil Works Director in 2016, I believe, he said, "How can I get certified?" I said, "Oh, you don't need to get certified to have the benefits of asset management." He said, "I want to walk into Congress and say, I'm doing the best in the world to get value to the nation from the assets. And that way they can say to them, if there's anything better, let me know about it. But until then, I'm using best practices." So, Peter, I'm not saying that you have to be certified, but welcome. Thanks for joining us. And we're just having a casual discussion about initiatives that have been achieved this year and what you're looking for next year. How are you doing?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I apologize. We
No
trip
worries.
over-
You can just get into what
We-
you're going.
Okay, we trip
We're
over
a casual
Zoom.
group. No penalties for being late. It's not a
Yeah.
problem.
Well, okay, so the big thing, and I just met with Robin and Stacy last week. Spent a week together down in the mountains, talking about some of these things. But the big thing that we're into this year is really trying to capture our full portfolio of our needs to sustain our infrastructure. And it's fun. It's funny that we haven't done that yet, but we're not really alone in that regard. A lot of organizations never stop to really take stock of the full needs. They just sort of muddle through year to year. And in the private sector, maybe whatever their budget cycle is. In the federal family, it's every 2 years. We just kind of think about, hey, what are we going to need 2 years from now? And what that does is that leads you down the rosy path that things are all right, because the problems emerge. That curve of requirements to sustain your infrastructure it comes in kind of shallow, and then it starts building. And if you were looking out across the horizon, you'd see that you're up against a mountain coming your way in terms of requirements. So we aren't quite on the we haven't gone to the mountaintop yet, but we are heading towards the front range. And so in the last year, we've asked our CMMS users to do more than simply manage their day-to-day maintenance with work orders. We've said, hey, we need you to start looking out into the 10 and 15-year horizon and start taking stock. Use your professional judgment. We're not asking for MKC certified cost estimates and engineering designs. We're asking for them to use their judgment. Most of them are pretty experienced. They know what this looks like. We just need to get out of their head and get it into a system, because that's a lot of what asset management's about, isn't it? It's the folks that are connected to the asset, that they're on the ground. They know this stuff. To some extent, they don't need to put it into a system. I think for complex assets, they do, but the people that are connected to the asset, they feel the value stream. They can see what degrades the value stream. And so some of these systems aren't really necessary for them, but for us to see it at a portfolio level, when you're part of an organization like our own, like the Corps of Engineers, you have to see these things coming out of portfolio, because we can't handle 500 Tainer gates in any given year. We would struggle to handle 50 in any given year. And so given that we have thousands of Tainer gates, we have to have that we have to be able to see these things coming. So that's what we're doing this year. And it's occupied a lot of my attention, because I've had to communicate this at our regional level and even at some local levels to kind of convince people that there's value in it. Because again, the closer you are to the asset, the less you see the value of some of these things, because you can feel it. You can sense it right there, and you don't appreciate that there's folks in the organization that can't so much. Next year, we're really trying to get after facility performance issues. We've got a project going this year to capture the outcomes that we pay for in our operating budget. We've always kind of focused on the capital side, because that's where the push and shove has taken place. But increasingly, we've recognized we've got to get after the operating budget side, and so we're working on performance levels for our facilities, get down to some details, dozens, 70, 80 really key outcomes that we buy with operating budgets, creating levels of creating measurements for those outcomes, and then attaching levels so that facility managers can start reporting, hey, this is what we can expect from our operating budget, and then that'll help us when we make adjustments, or when adjustments are made. Sometimes capital needs come in and make adjustments. So that's the year ahead. And all through this, I'm sure before I got on, this has come up, but the ability to see ourselves in some of these data visualization tools that are becoming so easy to access. If you want to jumpstart an asset management program or a particular information system that communicates about your assets, invest in some data scientists that can get that information visible. Suddenly your facility managers are aware that they're painting a picture. They're not just entering data, they're painting a picture. And it's become really powerful. So all through the last year and into next year, I think data visualization is going to continue to be a big driver, particularly at the headquarters level, because of leadership. They feed on those things. They live off of those data visualizations.
Any advice on some of the programs you're looking at, or what looks good, or or how about features? Not to promote specific programs. What kind of
we started out using ClickSense, which is off the shelf. But there's really good salesmen in the Capitol, and Microsoft got the better of the DoD. So we have recently switched to Power BI. And it does feel like we've given up some capability. I'm sure it's in there, but it's not as intuitive as we found ClickSense to be. So I can tell you that. I can also tell you that, it's important to have data scientists, but it's more important for leaders to sit down and do kind of an issue analysis and think about what problem data visualization is intended to solve. Sometimes you just want to improve discipline in data quality. Okay. Then create a data visualization for that purpose. I think it's just important to think about the purpose of that visualization, because if you just sort of start playing with the data and seeing what you get, you'll get a visualization, but it's not really going to help you. I'm working with some folks right now on some work order data visualizations, and it kind of evolved that way. We got the data set, started seeing what you could display from the data, and at the end of the day, there's a display, there's some pie charts, and they're live, but they're just not useful at a portfolio level. So definitely need to think about that issue analysis before you get into the data.
Yeah, we've been promoting the National Institute of Building Sciences Digital Twins Conference, and we're going to be talking with Roger Grant from the NIBS next week, because we see that visualization of the data allows people to say, I see what you're talking about related to really complex subjects. David, you started nodding when Peter mentioned ClickSense. What?
Yeah. To Peter's point, both things. So the most important thing that I think Peter said was, you have to know why you want to see what you want to see, right? So the way we're structured, and I work both groups, I'm in one group where we're using a Power BI, and what it showed us is that, hey, the asset is supposed to be in 6 different systems. The asset is only in 3, or the asset is in the acquisition system, but not in the property system, or vice versa. So that's more of a IT-driven business group. My ClickSense users, we set up dashboards for them, and those are mostly the property officers of the agency. It's 75 property officers plus, and I don't know, a couple thousand custodial officers. So what they're able to do, especially if they get locked out of the asset management software, or what anybody in the agency is able to do, is they can go to the ClickSense dashboard and filter all the way down on their organization, location, city, office, and see what assets are there, and see who they're assigned to. So the data visualization is a different need for that group, which is day-to-day accounting folks, or where the asset is, if it's deployed or something like that for an emergency, versus what we're doing with the data from an IT side at the senior management level to say, hey, what does the agency look like in the future? What assets do we have? Do we have over, or do we have under? It shows us more or less what resources are going to be needed to be committed to the future of the agency. So completely agree with Peter 1,000% on that.
Excellent. And to combine something that Stacy added was, we have members who have taken that custodial data, just the work orders, and input it into AI, and have therefore advanced the organization from being reactive to being proactive, because with tens of thousands of work orders, you can start predicting some things, not everything. And that's just a real simple way to move up through the asset management maturity rankings. And I think that's something that all of you are pointing out. And next year, I think we should have it be the federal asset management maturity insights, because there's clearly an evolution that's going on. And one of the things that you're all saying is that, Peter, you're great. You're not to the top of the mountain, and I don't think anybody ever gets there, but you keep on getting a little bit closer, a little bit closer. Stacy and Robin, do you have any comments you want to make on what's been said?
Well, the one thing I wanted to chat about a little bit more, and it was a comment actually made earlier that I think is really important, and I wanted just to kind of re-emphasize it. The tools and the technology, the systems out there are really cool. They can be but let's remember it's the shiny tool. It's the thing of the day. It's about the structure. It's about the governance. It's about having your processes set up and understanding your policies, procedures, and checking your data governance and your management of it all to make sure that you're doing the right things. And then how can you do it even better and automate it and get to it quicker? Let's not follow Robin talked about it a little bit. Let's not follow the shiny tool and then make our processes fit into that. It's not to mention it's very expensive because that means a lot of customizations.
Yeah. One of the things that I've noticed over the 11 years I've been involved with the Asset Leadership Network is people are starting to understand that when we first started, the tool was the savior. It was about the tool and the technology tool. Humanity is evolving, and we're evolving away from being, just excited about the tool and asking the question, like I think it was Peter that said, how is this information supposed to help us? How are these tools, how are these processes supposed to help us? And that's what I think asset management governance does, is keeps it about the mission of the organization, not about using the newest tool. So we've got a question that relates to yesterday. The Government Accountability Office had a paper on asset management related to emergency preparedness and climate change. And Jennifer Stutzman asks, do you have an example of your asset management system helping in a natural disaster? So you all have, well, the EPA has the most extensive portfolio in terms of geography. It covers every state. Well, so does the Army Corps of Engineers. BPA is more localized, but you're all touched by emergency, weather emergencies. Robin, you want to start with addressing how asset management helps with emergency preparedness?
Yeah, I think for us here in the Pacific Northwest, one thing that we've been really trying to work with our transmission folks on, and I think that asset management has kind of helped them with being able to tell their story and being able to say, this is what we need is for our wildfire mitigation. And so being able, through the asset management program, they have that health and condition assessments, and they know all that about their transmission lines, and they can use that information then to say, we need to focus more on this area or that area in our region to mitigate that potential wildfire issues. So that, and then I think that's the main one. I don't know if Stacy might be able to talk about any other ones that we have.
Yeah, wildfire is definitely one. One of the other aspects is seismic. And you could probably talk about that since you were in facilities beforehand and talk about the work they've been doing in their asset management plans and seismic and stuff.
Yeah, we have developed seismic policy and standards, and that's really incorporated into when we do any capital replacements or any expansion, so anything new. We've made sure to include that kind of seismic requirements into that. And so that's built into when they plan out their projects into the future and make sure they have funding and everything. That's all incorporated into their asset plans, and their SAMPs is a key feature.
Excellent, thank you. David, was emergency planning part of your SAMP?
24/7 nonstop. The biggest takeaway for me is depending on what type of software you're using and how you integrate software as well as communication, is because it's an emergency, what is the asset management availability as compared to if the asset is not there, what assets need to be acquired in a just-in-time situation, and is the funding already pre-allocated for that emergency? Different than a Superfund site, because that's the aftermath of the emergency.
Right.
But on that upfront side, the way we respond, the federal government has a duty, EPA, Army Corps, FEMA, etc. But we use a lot of contract support as well.
Mm-hmm.
With contract support, you can run into issues such as, is the asset within agency walls and can be deployed from the agency, or does the contractor hold title to the asset? And now I have to reach out to the contractors when a deployment needs to happen in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
So we made it our business to make sure that we work directly the past couple of years throughout the pandemic with our emergency response team to see how we can not only use our asset management tool, but combine that with a GIS tool so that you can see where the asset is in real time if it's deployed. So that way, if you have impeding disasters, which happens, Team 2 can look at a region and say, well, the Eastern Seaboard team already deployed said name assets. We have to get a mobile unit, or we have to go out and acquire new assets, however they do that. So in integrating systems, working specifically with our emergency response group, we have different types of emergency response groups. So we actually have the team that do the disaster response, as well as we have teams that do disaster response testing. So working with both of those groups specifically, and integrating as many software systems, and then neutralizing whatever software systems that were no longer needed, our primary asset management system is able to see what asset is deployed in real time, who has it, and then we move to a mobile technology with our contract support partner, where an asset can be inventoried via a mobile device while it's deployed. So if contractor A has to give it back to the government for the asset to be moved over to contractor B, whether it's put on a contract or whether the government has title and the contractors are using the asset in the field, with your mobile device, if you don't have field connectivity, as long as your mobile device is powered, you can still account for the asset. And then once you regain connectivity, download the information back to said name software once you have access to an internet.
Sounds like you're talking from experience and that it has worked and helped.
All of it is real time. Everything that just happened from Florida on up the coastline, and obviously historically with the COVID process, Tyvek suits and deploying N95 masks and things of that nature. And then obviously the day-to-day disasters that we see.
Yes. So Peter, I can't even begin to ask you to mention all the disasters you see, but I'll ask you to comment on how asset management helps with emergency preparedness and response. And then we'll do closing comments. And after Peter talks about emergency preparedness, we'll ask Robin to provide closing comments first. Peter?
Yeah, so it is the Corps of Engineers. We obviously have a navigation mission that isn't inherently an emergency response kind of a context, but our 700 and some lakes and reservoirs, that's kind of what they're for, is emergency response. And so, yeah, we obviously we have we use a work order system to make sure that we're doing the care to maintain a certain level of readiness for some of these assets, whether they be pumps or just facilities to create damming services, things like that, emergency gates, things like that. The maintenance of these things, they just don't seem like a priority. And this is another service that we get from our asset management tools, is it allows us to keep the priority of things that just don't seem like a priority when it's sunny. So think about an emergency gate. It's easy to set that off in on the facility and deal with the public, right? The public's in your face. So the asset management systems help us to continue to see that emergency gate, even though we haven't used it in 3 years or 5 years, or the new managers never used it. He's been there for 7 years, never used that emergency gate. But you can't lose it. You can't lose track of it, and you can't misunderstand that it's maintenance. So that its maintenance is important. So that's one way that our system, we use our asset management system. And the other, our condition assessment system, we all have systems for condition assessments. We deliberately distinguish between assets that will shut the facility down, make it unable to perform in an emergency from ones that maybe impair it. And that's helpful, right? You want to manage the condition of the assets that will shut the facility down. But then we also identify, I don't know who's in the audience, but there might be some folks from the Corps of Engineers in our dam safety community that identify the assets that unfortunately would open the facility up in an emergency. The things like the foundation and embankment assets that are associated with our dams. Those have to be treated completely different from our operational assets, which is the main sort of the bread and butter of the asset management program. We're about delivering the value that the facility, the asset was designed for. But then there's some things that we want to avoid. There's obviously value in avoiding something like a dam failure, but that's not really what the asset management system is designed to do. The asset management system is designed to work inside how that facility was designed. And so our systems identify those assets that introduce threats that aren't even related to operations. They're threats that are external. And so we can, when we see in our condition assessment program that we've got an issue with one of those assets, it's time to pop a flare. That doesn't fit into our ordinary asset management program. That goes to a specialist who deal with dam safety and help to avoid loss of life, things like that. So
Excellent. Thank you. Robin, since you have to go, would you like to start with the closing comments?
I'll let Stacy handle the official closing comments from BPA. I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me on this, and I really appreciate all the things you guys do at the Asset Leadership Network and all the resources you provide. So it's great to be part of this, and I really appreciate.
Thank you. We enjoyed having you.
Yeah, thank you. I'll let Stacy's got everything covered. I'm sure.
Okay.
She will tell you all about BPA. So thanks, everyone. I have to go to another meeting.
And we're going to go just a little bit over, if that's okay with some of the speakers. I don't want to just stop because we're at the top of the hour. I know that some of our attendees might have to go. But before we get to the other closing remarks, we've got a question from Marie Louise. What are your thoughts on looking beyond data governance to data strategy while managing asset data sets as an asset itself for better data-driven decision making? We kind of touched on that, but she's really focusing on data strategy.
I would assume that question's for me.
Yeah,
Right?
I was going to go, thank you for stepping up. I was going to go straight to you. Yes.
Yeah. We are, a great question. We are actually revising our data strategy with our new, we have, the reinvigoration with our new organization. We're working with our governance team to look at and revise, and actually at the same time that DOE, the bigger agency, or big parent agency, is finalizing theirs. I don't think they published it yet. It is still in the review processes of their data strategy, and we're looking at for alignment. And we have principles. We have 5 principles. I don't remember them all off the top of my head, but one of them is treating data as an asset, which is important. And and we were just having that conversation yesterday of the difference between asset data and treating data as an asset. Of course, 2 different things. And what does that mean to us as an organization, and how that folds into our strategy? We have goals. We have 4 goals, and we have objectives and sub-objectives. And right now, we're not 100% done with that strategy. We're right into rolling out actually establishing the roadmaps that we can then do our work plans for this year on. We're running a little bit shy on it, but we didn't want to be too fast through it. We needed to make sure that we get enough input at various levels of the organization to increase our success of it all. Because it really is, and with that, in our goals, we're looking at increasing, getting more robust with our data acumen and data literacy in the organization, throughout the organization, not just in asset management. And we're also looking at our data quality, which would feed into data catalogs, and enterprise data dictionaries, enterprise data business glossaries. That would be, so we're saying this, we're using the same terms, which is important in the asset management arena, but in everything that we do with operations. And asset management is part of most things that we do. And then we've got areas of improvements of interoperability of our systems. So when we start talking about the digital twin and getting into that, you've got to talk about what your systems are. You API to API. Do you have interoperability of your systems, so that you can have whatever you decide as an agency, whether or not it's to have some sort of source of record, source of truth, the digital twin, whatever it is, it's important to make sure that you have the appropriate interoperability of your systems, and the rationalization of the systems, so optimal number of systems. And then the storage. So the appropriate number of systems. Do you have a data lake house, or how do you go from a data swamp to a lake house kind of scenario of things, and what does that mean to us, and how we're doing that? So we're putting together a strategy, and it's going to be, it's based upon, with all these strategies, they're based upon your maturity at the moment. And you have a 5 years, ours is a 4 to 5 year strategy. We're still working that out. It's in alignment with our strategic plan, and we've got to build on it. It's going to be an evolutionary, it's more like, even though it's only for 5 years, it's a long-term plan. This is just the first pass, or the second pass, but the first pass of this particular one, and it allows us to see where we go, what our vision is for that first 5 years, and then we have a different lens that we look through. Our frame of reference is different, because in theory our maturity is better, and then we can still work in all of those areas, but from a different level, and get it to a higher level of maturity.
Excellent. Wow, I'm so glad Maria asked that question. Peter, do you have anything you want to chip in on that?
No, it's tough, Stacy. Thanks for that data swamp reference. That's what we've got, a lot of data swamps that people. Yeah, that's good. Now, I think this distinction between the strategy and governance, I think you got to have both. You got to have both, because at the end of the day, it's all about it's these human minds, and people are possessive of their data. So you need a strategy to kind of help everybody understand where we're all trying to get to, I think, but you've got to have some hard-nosed methods of control, I think, or people will just keep doing what they're doing, and they'll go their own way. So I think you need both.
For the visually impaired, when Peter said people are possessive of their data, both Stacy and David started shaking their heads and smiling. David, do you want to chip in on this at all?
It's remarkable.
So, and Stacy, outstanding job. And where I feel like Stacy explained it from a strategic management standpoint at the end user level, our agency right now, we have an East Coast and West Coast data digitization center. So that will enable an end user to go there to do data research, as well as it'll enable the end user to retrieve a record that somebody deemed as an agency record if they've saved an email, a memo, or a letter, or whatever the case may be. So these digitization centers are we have a whole agency office that's running them, excuse me, specifically for information purposes. And basically they're extremely mature digital libraries, but we actually had to build out and construction in order to put these two facilities in place. So I think a lot of the government will wound up going to a process similar if they're not already on their way.
Excellent. That's could be worth exploring further. You have all given excellent fodder for future presentations. So thank you. And David, if you have gotten the bug out of your throat, if you would like to start with closing remarks, that would be great.
First of all, Mike, I would like to thank you for hosting this federal asset leadership workshop for everybody. I think it's important that the federal government is as transparent as possible, and that we collaborate with our contract business partners that are going to work with the federal government or that are already working with the federal government. So the Asset Leadership Network has been tremendous. The growth has been tremendous, and the collaboration with this group, along with other federal work groups, that's either solo or partner with the public sector, I think is the best way we go forward in asset management and getting the word out there. Organizations like NPMA, the National Property Management Association, combined with something like this, are the new modern day tools for what asset leadership is and how asset management should be governed. So thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you for that, because that is part of what we've been trying to do, is team with organizations like the National Institute of Building Sciences, the National Academy of Sciences. In January, we're having something with the Government Finance Officers Association. We have a longtime relationship with the Institute of Asset Management, and in Australia, the Asset Management Council. That's that. So what you said is very heartwarming to us. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Stacy, do you have closing comments?
Well, I want to also thank you again for inviting us to talk today. We appreciate it, and for all the work that you do, Michael. We really, I too would like to say that thank you for the work of the ALN, and there are a lot of really good sessions that you've had that we think it's part of our journey for maturation to where we hope that one day we'll be as cool as the Australian counterparts and with their work and their maturity in that area. If we can somehow figure out how to do something that a trip down there, that would be awesome too, but that's not going to happen, to learn more about it. But this is a great way to get out there to all of our worldwide, all of our partners in asset management, to learn what they're doing and get that different perspective, which is outstanding. And I appreciate your work in doing that.
Well, just between me and you, Stacy, I was going to reach out to BPA to do a program on our values and benefits from asset management web series that we do with the Asset Management Council, and that's the first week in February. But I'll send you an email about that very soon.
All right, sounds good.
And thank you. I appreciate the compliment to myself, but obviously, asset leadership is a team effort. And I just want to make sure that this is all possible because of our organizational members, our senior fellows, and all of our supporters, including all of you. So thank you. And Peter?
Yeah, I mean, I can chime in on this. The great comments, Stacy and David. And I appreciate the fact that the ALN does these and gets us out of our sort of inward looking, battles to get better inside our organizations, because I know that takes up a lot of my bandwidth, and these kind of sessions help us get out and see what each other are doing, and it definitely adds value for me, and I hope for other folks. So thanks for doing it. We're a bunch of nerds, so we're probably hard to get us out and get us talking. So hats off.
Oh, we love it. And one of the things that we do like is we see people exchanging emails and connecting through these programs right in front of us. So we know that it's happening, and it makes us happy to see it. So thank you all for the work that you do for the United States. And asset management is going to, I love asset management because it's a bipartisan issue. Both sides of the aisles, Green Party, Libertarians, everyone agrees that asset management is something that needs to be done. And I know that it will continue to mature and grow in importance. And maybe one day we'll see an asset management council, like we have a chief information officer council and a CFO council, and etc. Maybe, one day that will happen. So thanks for your contributions to the federal government, and thank you for sharing your insights with us. And we'll have these recorded and share those with the audience when they're available. Thank you to the audience for sticking around. And Nick, if you want to come in and close us out.
Yeah, my pleasure to be here today and listen to the smart discussion and participate how I can. And yeah, thanks to everyone who helped make the first week of our Federal Asset Leadership Insights event happen. We couldn't do it without you. And thanks especially to our panelists today. Really grateful that we could have all four of you here. Peter, thanks for making it when you could. Like Mike said, we're a friendly organization and no tardy fees. Just thanks for showing. And thank you to our patron members, Jacobs, Mantech, Onuma, ABS Quality Evaluations, and CGI, and all our organizational members for helping make programming like this possible. This is what we love to do, get people together to talk about the things that matter, and we couldn't do it without the support of our organizational partners. And then upcoming events next week on Thursday, same time, 3 p.m. Eastern, we have a program with Roger Grant from the National Institute of Building Sciences, talking about their upcoming Digital Twins Conference. And with that, I think we'll say thanks again, everyone, and hopefully we'll see you there next week.
Excellent. Bye, everyone.